In this video, we are going to cover everything that you need to understand about conditioning as a mixed martial artist athlete, whether you're just a jiu-jitsu hobbyist, a competitor, or a pro fighter in the cage of MMA. We're going to talk about the 3 energy systems that you need to train to make sure that you're not gassing out when it counts the most. All right, most guys will piece together different kinds of workouts. Maybe they'll do high intensity interval training and then they'll just do a ton of rolls, but they'll end up still feeling gassed out after round 1 or 2, taking a rest round when it's time to roll or spar, and just constantly breathing and heaving for air when they really need to be conditioned for the sport. In this video, we are going to cover everything you need to know as an MMA athlete, whether you're a jiu-jitsu hobbyist or a pro fighter in the cage. We're going to talk about and break down everything that you need to know about conditioning for MMA. I'm going to apply my own experience as a fighter, my experience working with pro fighters, and also reference some things from the UFC Performance Institute research just to make sure that at the end of this video, you have structure that you can be guided by when it comes to building your conditioning. Now, most guys aren't gassing out because they're weak or undisciplined. It's just that they're not training their 3 energy systems for MMA properly. A lot of guys think it's just more intensity, more rolls, more intervals, but we need to do this strategically and we need to have the end in mind when it comes to building our gas tank. So we're not just sitting out by the end of round 2 when it comes to rolling and we find the nearest white belt to just take it easy on. We got to push the pace in order to build our gas tank. So the first thing that I want to cover is what conditioning actually is. Conditioning is defined by the UFC Performance Institute as your ability to meet the energy demands of your sport. So in MMA, there's so much that goes into it. You need to be able to produce energy faster, sustain it longer, recover it quicker than your opponent. And to do that, you need to train all 3 energy systems: your aerobic, anaerobic, and alactic energy systems. All right, I'm going to break those down so they're very simple to you. It's very confusing at first, but let's break it down, because when you train them all together properly, you're just going to be a lethal weapon in the cage. Just to make this simple, I want you to think of yourself as like a vehicle, right? You're this fighting machine and you're a vehicle, and all 3 energy systems are being used by you as that vehicle. When you're training all of them properly, you can push the pace, you can recover faster, you can just stay dangerous at every segment of the fight. So the 3 energy systems, I want you to think of them as like this. The first one is the aerobic system. Think of that as the engine. Like, this is your cruise control. This is what your footwork is dictated by. This is what almost like 80% of the fight is for most of the time. It's a lot of sustained pace. It's your footwork. It helps you recover. And most of the fight depends on your aerobic base. This is why you see people like the Diaz brothers, who they can just go all day. Their aerobic base is insane. It just keeps going forever. Their heart rate just stays calm no matter what. It's not flashy or anything like that. There's no crazy bursts, but it lasts forever. That's what you want to have as a great foundation. Now, next, we want to talk about your anaerobic system. Think of that as like the acceleration of your vehicle. When you're pushing down on the gas pedal and you're starting to turn things up a little bit, think of that like grappling exchanges, your blitzing strikes. It's really turning up on the cage, things like that. So think of this as when things are really turning up with the grappling exchanges, the striking, we're doing some cage wrestling, all kinds of things are starting to really push the pace. That's going to be your anaerobic base. And the UFC Performance Institute actually has research that it usually lasts between 6 seconds to 36 seconds inside the cage. And when you're training for this, it's usually like 20 to 60 second bursts. Essentially just looking at it like it's this acceleration. You're starting to move, but now you're moving faster. You can even think of it like in the NFL with contact sports, where every play they have a huge big burst of energy and then they go for a break. They have a huge big burst, go for a break. It's just like that kind of energy system where it comes in bursts. It's not like the aerobic one where we are just like a marathon runner going all day. The anaerobic base is like the acceleration, like a football player. Like, you're really going in, the grappling's starting to increase, the striking's starting to increase, things like that. In order to train your anaerobic system, you're going to think of training it with short, structured intervals and just controlled rest periods, focusing on just repeatable power, strength, speed, without losing your form. And last but not least, we're going to talk about the nitrous, the turbo button. We're going to talk about your alactic system, also known as your ATP, PC, adenosine triphosphate, phosphocreatine. It's a big mouthful, but I just want you to think of it as like the nitro button. This is like the absolute all-out burst when you use it in like an explosive blast double leg, or you are just getting out of a bad position, you're exploding out of it, or you're putting your everything into a knockout hook or cross. This is your full out, full burst of energy. This is like your, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter. This is like your power meter at its max, and you're ready to use your ultimate, and you can only use it like once or twice, because once you are full out bursted out of that energy, you're going to be gassed. It's going to be tired. But what we want to be able to do is recover from that faster when we use that form of alactic energy system. It's a very short window of energy, but it has the most high impact of all of them. And it wins exchanges, it wins fight, it can turn the tides of battle real quick in an instant. You train it with all-out efforts, with sprints, sleds, heavy lifts, deadlifts, bench, things like that, and they just make you stronger. It's building your engine, but adding that turbo at the end can win fights for you. Now we're going to talk about how to structure your conditioning. The UFC Performance Institute breaks training into 2 phases. There's phase 1, your general prep, which is your off-camp training, and then there's phase 2, which is your specific prep, which is your fight camp. Phase 1 of general preparedness is essentially going to last anywhere between 8 to 12 weeks, and you're just focusing on building your foundation. You're just trying to expand your aerobic and anaerobic capacity, build strength, build more of a work capacity, and you're just focusing on volume more than the intensity. So you have longer, steadier sessions, building endurance, adding strength, working on force and stability, and it usually looks like 2 to 3 aerobic sessions with 1 to 2 higher intensity training sessions per the week, and you're just trying to focus on weak points, and we're just building that foundation, fixing out weak links, kind of smoothing out the edges, making sure that you're overall ready for anything. General physical preparedness, whether it's a jiu-jitsu tournament, whether it's an MMA fight, whether it's a striking boxing exchange, Muay Thai exchange, you're just staying ready, right? Floyd Mayweather has a great saying where you don't have to get ready if you just stay ready, and he trained daily, and he was a legend in the boxing sport. Not saying that everybody should train every day, because not everybody should. There's definitely times where we need to rest, especially in MMA, but just having that mentality of being ready at all times is so important for you as a martial artist and as a fighter. Phase 2 is fight camp. That's where we start to turn things up a little bit, and it lasts anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks, and we're shifting from general fitness, general preparedness, to really fight-specific conditioning, taking things to that next level, really redlining things until it's the week of the bout, and here we're increasing the intensity. We're making it feel like a real-life training fight simulation whenever we're in that scenario. We're combining our MMA with our strength and our conditioning, whether that looks like really intense grappling rounds, Shark Tank rounds, we're doing more cage work, more sparring. This is where we're building our anaerobic power, our explosive movements, and we are applying it to sport-specific scenarios depending on what the opponent is like, or depending on what we're preparing for. So conditioning is still once or twice per week, but we're not overdoing it, since the mixed martial arts practice itself is already going to be very, very taxing. So each week it gets more and more specific until we get to the actual fight week. And in the fight week, we don't want to redline ourselves anymore. We're taking it very simple, very easy. We're still staying active and engaged, but we're not redlining the body. There's a saying one of my old coaches said, where the hay is already in the barn. You've already done all of your work, building the foundation in the off season, and then during the fight camp, really dialing up the intensity. That's where the redlining happens the most. Of course, we don't want to go through injury or anything like that, but then fight week itself, we're still staying active, we're still getting good looks, but we're not going into that red line anymore. We're saving the body and getting ready for the big day with the fight. Now, of course, with conditioning and your energy systems, the fuel that you put into your body is extremely important. And if you're a fighter and you're not being fueled by carbs, you are at a major disadvantage. The UFC Performance Institute itself recommends that carbs are they're key for high intensity sessions, whether it's in the cage or with your training. So don't go low carb if you have a high intensity training day. It's okay to go lower carb on days where you're resting, but if you have hardcore training, you want to be carved up for those days. It gives you better recovery, more fuel available for when you gotta explode, versus someone who's just gonna be, they're gonna be a carnivore person. There's a reason why not a lot of people are carnivore when they're in high contact sports, because they need that competitive advantage with the carbohydrate. It's your body's preferred source of energy when it comes to throwing a blast double onto someone, let's say. So you got to make sure you're being mindful of what you eat, your hydration, your electrolytes, also making sure that recovery is very important. You're listening to your body, you're doing mobility, you're making sure you're strong in all ranges of motion, you're doing your breath work. Like there's so many things that go into your conditioning more than just what you're doing for your workouts. It's not just about what you're doing on the mats or in the gym, it's also what you're doing with the other 24 hours of the day, what you're fueling your body with nutrition, making sure that you're getting enough sleep, making sure that you're just listening to your body and addressing everything at the root so you're not building up nagging injuries along the way as an athlete. So just to recap everything about the 3 energy systems and how to train for MMA, just for an example, how I want you to think about it is, again, we have the aerobic system where this is just your cruise control, this is your engine, this is going to be trained by doing things like road work where you're jogging, you're doing some rowing. It's just low intensity, steady state cardio essentially, and you're just doing it for longer periods of time, 20 minutes to 60 minutes, things like that, and that's really built up in the off season big time. But then when we move to fight camp, when we're around 6 to 8 weeks before a fight, we're really starting to build that anaerobic system and that alactic system by pushing more intervals, doing really hard training and sparring sessions, and just really redlining yourself as much as possible and training under pressure and training while fatigued. So when it comes to fight day or competition day, you want to make damn well sure that you're not the first guy who's tired. You can be as technical as possible, but all of that technique and strategy goes out the window real quick when you're the first one that's breathing for air, gassed out, and tired. But if you're the fighter who is conditioned, who can keep going, who shows no signs of being tired at all, it will destroy that other opponent's confidence. It will make you so much more dangerous in the ring, in the cage, on the mats, whatever the case may be, if you have a gas tank and they don't. A lot of times in jiu-jitsu or in a fight, you're actually not even just trying to shut them down right away. A lot of times it's a war of attrition. You're trying to make them tired. You're trying to gas them out. You're trying to just put pressure on them until they just, you break their will. This is why fighters like Khabib and so many of the Dagestani guys with their wrestling systems, they just break people because physically they don't have the conditioning to keep up with these guys because they're just putting on more pressure, and they do not get tired. And the way that they don't get tired is that they're training all 3 energy systems properly in the off season, in the fight camp, and making sure that everything's tied together so that when it comes to perform on the fight day, they're ready to take the gold home with them. Make sure that you are training all energy systems properly in order to be the most well-rounded fighter that you can be, and you can dominate on the mats, in the cage, and in life in general. So in conclusion, when it comes to training your cardio and conditioning as a mixed martial artist and jiu-jitsu athlete, it's not just about working harder, it's also working smarter, making sure that you're taking care of all 3 energy systems so that when it comes to fight day or competition day, you're not the first person who gasses out. You're the first person who wins, dominates, and brings home the gold. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Check out the description down below for more resources. And if you have any questions on anything, feel free to message me on Instagram. I read all my messages and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can to help you become the strongest version of yourself and the best martial artist possible. To your health and to dominating the competition, thanks for watching.